Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the Divine Reality course. We are continuing with the section on whether science proves atheism or whether science disproves religion and God. Now we're moving on to making a distinction between philosophical naturalism and methodological naturalism. And again, this is something that some atheists at least conflate quite a bit, right? Although they may have similar origins, they are two distinct things, right? And they may even support each other in some ways. However, they are not the same, right? And we shouldn't conflate the two. Now, philosophical naturalism, as we discussed in the beginning of this course, is a worldview, right? It's a philosophical worldview, a way of looking at reality. And some of the key points in regards to this metaphysical view is that there is no God, no supernatural, or no non-physical, and everything can be explained via physical processes. Everything is a closed physical system. And everything within this box, if you like, every effect can be explained by physical causes. Everything is physical. Physical things result in other physical things. And even if some of them say, even if there is something outside of this closed physical system, it has nothing to do with this physical system. That is philosophical naturalism, okay? Methodological naturalism, on the other hand, is a tool, if you like, that's employed within science, right? So why do methodological naturalism is basically for anything to be considered a scientific explanation, it cannot refer to divine power or creativity, right? This does not in general contradict God's existence or revelation. The physical causes are a manifestation of the divine will. So the key thing here is what this methodological naturalism, which is employed within science, basically suggests that you cannot bring supernatural explanations into science, or you cannot appeal to God. Everything has to be explained via the physical. You have to look for physical explanations, right? So this is the method. It's a methodological approach within science, right? Now, here's the thing. When it comes to methodological naturalism, just because within the sphere of science you are not to appeal to the supernatural or to the divine, it doesn't mean the divine or the supernatural doesn't exist. This is not what methodological naturalism posits or is interested in, right? This is a claim that's made by philosophical naturalists, right? So there's a distinction here. Now, of course, and this is a very interesting quote by Todd Scott. He states, of course, the scientist as an individual is free to embrace a reality that transcends naturalism, right? So a scientist could be a theist, but when he does the science, he may be restricted, and as people are today, to adhere to methodological naturalism, right? And this is, if anything, it does work quite well because it gets the focus back on focusing on things that could be picked up by observations and studied, right? Because when you appeal to the supernatural God, well, that's beyond sense perception, and therefore from a purely scientific methodological perspective, it's not really that conducive for them. However, if they restrict themselves to methodological naturalism, then they have to look for physical explanations for physical causes, right, or effects. And those physical things that can be sort of comprehended and that could be observed and therefore can be studied. It just makes sense from that perspective. But it doesn't mean now that methodological naturalism is concluding atheism or concluding that there is no God. Just because we don't engage in the study of God or appeal to God, therefore it doesn't mean that there is no God or creator, right? As I mentioned earlier, science tells us the how and not the why. Knowing the how doesn't negate the why. So like we said earlier, there's a distinction between the how and the why. Science focuses on the how. How do these things work within this physical world? It doesn't deal with the why. It doesn't entertain the why question. Now, just because it doesn't entertain the why question, or that the why question is beyond the scope of science, it doesn't now logically follow that why type of question or the answer isn't there, right? Science is neutral from this perspective. Its position is, yes, we don't appeal to God or refer to God, and we look for physical explanations for physical effects. That doesn't mean that there is no God, right? But whereas philosophical naturalism, on the other hand, is making clear claims that there is no God, there is no divine, there is no supernatural, there's nothing beyond the physical, right? So that's a positive claim. Whereas methodological naturalism is different, right? And again, although they may have similar origins and they both focus on the material, they are two distinct things. Although, again, one can argue that most scientists, or many scientists these days, are philosophical naturalists, such as Richard Dawkins, as an example. So, science does not lead to atheism. Science cannot observe God. The question of God, the reality of God, is beyond the scope of science. There are other sources of knowledge, as we've acknowledged already. Some of those science relies upon and utilizes within the sphere of science itself. Conflation between methodological and philosophical naturalism is something that shouldn't be done. These are two distinct things and should be kept distinct and understood as individual realities. And explaining how things work does not disprove that they have a creator, right? Science focuses, as we said, on explaining how things work, how the physical world works, how things within this universe work. Now, this doesn't automatically disprove the creator, right? There's a distinction, the how and the why, and we should keep this separate in our minds, inshallah. Now, that being said, in the next session, brothers and sisters, we're going to move on to discussing or engaging, does science disprove religion? So when you're ready, move on to the next section.